The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
We want to acknowledge that the City of Hamilton is situated upon traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase, 1792, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the City of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Hello and welcome to the Cable 14 2025 federal election debates, presented in partnerships with our good friend at the Hamilton Spectator. Hello everyone, I'm Mike Fortune, and for the next hour, I will be your moderator as we feature candidates from the riding of Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North. Joining us live here in studio tonight, we have representing the Liberal Party, Mr. Chuck Phillips, and representing the New Democratic Party, Mr. Peter Werhan. To both of you, thank you very much for being here tonight. We should also let everyone know we did invite Dan Muse of the Conservative Party. Candidate Muse did let us know that he had dedicated himself to an important community event prior to receiving our invitation. As a result, he will be absent from tonight's debate. We also received an email from Anita Payne of the Green Party telling us she is not actively campaigning. We'd also like to let you know, also running in the Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North area is Nikita Mahood, representing the People's Party. She was offered the opportunity to make a recorded statement here at Cable 14, and that will be included as part of tonight's live broadcast. For all of you watching at home, thank you. Thank you for joining us on your television, or of course, maybe you're even watching us online. The format tonight includes 2 minutes for each candidate to make an opening statement. We'll then be inviting 3 members of our local media to pose questions to the candidates in studio with us tonight. We will also be putting forward some additional questions that have been submitted by you, the viewers, but more on that in a moment. After our viewer questions, we will have a second round of questions from our esteemed media panel. After all the media questions have been asked, we will then be moving on to our open floor debate, where each candidate will be able to bring up a topic of their choice to discuss. Finally, we will finish off with a 1-minute closing statement from each candidate joining us in studio. And to the viewers at home, or if you're watching live online, please make sure you tweet us on X at Cable14 or email election@Cable14.com with any questions you would like us to ask the candidates here this evening. Very important. Please remember to include your first name and what area of Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North you live in. Well, Hamilton, that completes all the housekeeping. Are you ready? Let's get started with each of our candidates' 2-minute opening statements. Representing the Liberal Party, to my right, Chuck Phillips, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. I just want to start off by expressing my appreciation to Cable 14 for this opportunity to present to our constituents. The staff here has made me feel very, very welcome, and I appreciate it very much. Appreciate the participation of the CBC, CHCH TV, and the SPEC in asking the questions. So I think we would all agree that this is the most consequential election in our generation. And as a result, I think what I'm hearing at the door is a focus on leadership. Who is the right leader to lead us through this crisis, which was entirely unprovoked and is entirely unpredictable at this stage? I think if we look at the resume of Mark Carney, it's hard not to be impressed with both his economic background as well as his very strong crisis management skills. I think at the local level, and I've been hearing this a lot as well, is people are very interested in hearing who is standing for election for the various parties. And so I really welcome the opportunity to be here, to be able to present my credentials and answer any questions you may have. I find it really a mystery I can't resolve as to why my Conservative colleague, the incumbent, had better things to do today. Would have been a tremendous opportunity. The Liberal platform has various planks that speak to the needs of the rural members of our constituency, and we also have a very strong platform regarding the growth that is happening in our urban areas. And so I'm looking forward to answering questions and being able to demonstrate, some of those issues as we go.
Thank you very much for your opening remarks, Mr. Phillips. We will now be moving on to the new Democratic Party candidate, Mr. Peter Werhan. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to all of our local media for making this debate happen. It's extremely important. My name is Peter Werhan, and I'm the NDP candidate here in Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North. I'm an international trade lawyer, and I represent workers and small businesses in Ottawa. Now, I decided to get involved in this election because I didn't see the leadership that we needed to deal with this current threat, either from the ruling party or from the Conservative official opposition. Now, this moment is an inflection point, but it's not about Donald Trump. It's about the last 30 years in this country and how we got to this point. If you name an issue, it is in crisis. Housing, crisis. Trade, crisis. Cost of living, crisis. Climate, crisis. Crime, crisis. Healthcare, crisis. Something has to give, and we need leaders to step up with real solutions. We need to fight for the country we want to have years and decades from now, not park our concerns 1 week after Election Day. People in power want us to tune out and treat government like it's something that happens by other people, for other people. But we need to keep showing up for each other. Now, as a lawyer, I, of course, expected to spend as much of my intro as possible talking about myself, but unfortunately, I'm going to have to end my intro with an apology. I know there's seemingly a lot of sickness and booking issues going on with Conservative candidates, but I wanted to apologize to the local media here on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada. I don't know if Conservative HQ is telling candidates not to engage in debates, or if Dan Moyes has this sewn up and doesn't want a bad soundbite. But Dan, wherever you are tonight, and whether you skipped this debate because your party told you to, or because you were afraid of the media, let me just say that for a pig farmer, this is an awfully chicken move. I look forward to talking with the rest of you this evening.
To both of our candidates here tonight, thank you. We look forward to this lively debate, and thank you for the opening statements. It's now time to bring in our local media representatives. We told you they'd be here. They're coming up now. Joining us tonight, we have from the Hamilton Spectator, Mr. John Wells, from CHCH, Manisa Donabalan, and from the CBC Hamilton, Eva Salinas. So to all of you, thank you very much for joining us. Each media representative will direct their question to a candidate. Once the question has been answered, the other candidate will then have a chance to address that particular topic. We ask that you please keep your responses to no more than 1 minute. I will be on top of that, and I will be letting you, as the candidates, know. Our first question comes from the very own Hamilton Spectators, Mr. John Wells. The floor is yours, sir.
Thanks, Mike. I'll address this first question to the Liberal candidate, Chuck, and then Peter can join in after that if you like. Monroe Hamilton International Airport is in your riding, and there's been much reported about how the airport has been a cargo hub, a successful cargo hub over the years, but has lagged on the passenger side in terms of being a consistent airport that way. What do you think the federal government, what role should the federal government play, if any, in helping to perhaps spark more passenger traffic through the airport and making it more sustainable from year to year rather than this sort of hot and cold pattern we've seen in the past?
Well, I think Monroe Airport is a wonderful place to travel into and out of. I think Transport Canada has a role to play because Pearson Airport, of course, is becoming more and more congested. it gets harder and harder to travel from, coming in the doors to your gate. And so I see the Hamilton Airport as a great way. And I know I personally have traveled frequently from the airport and found it to be a much more pleasant experience than fighting my way through Pearson.
Mr. Phillips, thank you very much for that response. We will now open it up. The topic is open for full discussion between the two of you. Mr. Werhan, response to Mr. Wells' question.
Yeah, so one thing I do want to address is the fact that Monroe is the third busiest cargo airport in the country now. So it's obviously an extremely exposed workplace to trade issues. We're going to have problems with cargo capacity as well as passenger issues going forward. And I know that with a lot of Canadians choosing not to fly south of the border, we're going to have to focus more on Canadian destinations, and that's definitely a role where Transport Canada can have an impact. It would be great to also have comments today from the Shadow Minister of Transport, but unfortunately he's not here.
To both of you, I'm assuming, are we done with that topic?
That's I agree entirely with my friend from the
We
NDP.
all agree. Okay, that is wonderful. We will be continuing on though with the questions from our media. Not a lot of debate around that particular one. Now from CHCH, Manisa Danabalan. Your question, please, Manisa, and who you'll be directing it to, please.
Thank you. My question is for the NDP candidate. Jobs are a big concern, which includes those in the agriculture and export businesses. What's your plan to bring job security to residents living in your riding?
Thank you. That's a great question. That's a question that I've spoken to a lot at the doorstep, especially in our riding here in Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North. Agriculture and agri-processing is the second biggest industry in the Hamilton area, and it's a very big business as well in Brant North. Now, one of the main things that I want to do as representative of the NDP is make sure that in these trade issues, we're not forgetting about working families and small businesses, because that's very easy to do. So my party is going to be pushing the Liberals to move forward with EI expansion, because right now there's many situations where you can be laid off from your job as a factory worker, but as a contract worker who is being laid off cleaning that factory, you're not entitled to EI benefits. One other point I would want to make, though, is that especially talking with the OFA, we really do need to bring back agri-processing into this country. For everything from canola.
Mr. Werhan, your time is up. You are more than happy to, or more than welcome, I should say, to respond after Mr. Phillips has. The floor is now yours, Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, I think that the job situation in this riding is one of the key issues in this election. And the Liberal Party has a specific platform around producing or supporting increased processing facilities for agricultural producers. They have indicated that they're going to protect workers through much easier access to EI. And definitely the exposure that we have, given all of the small manufacturers that are involved in automotive, as well as those that are involved in the steel and aluminum business, will be impacted by it. So it really is very much top of mind. And Mr. Carney has a plan to be able to redeploy and perhaps find new export markets.
We are now into full discussion debate mode, if you gentlemen wish, and if you would like to finish off your comments from earlier.
Yeah, I guess just to wrap it up, I would want to say that, I'm very happy that a lot of Canadians have had the ability to choose to buy Canadian in recent weeks and months. But part of the reason why not everyone can make that decision, because, household budgets are finite, is because we've lost a lot of the good paying jobs over the past 30 years that used to put food on the table. So the NDP plan is not just to buy Canadian, which is something we need to do, but it's also to start building Canadian as well.
Yeah, and I think that the Carney platform also involves a commitment to make Canada the leading G7 economy. He has got a number of issues around improving efficiency in the economy, also dealing with the productivity issues that have seen us lag other economies. And so with all of those things, good paying jobs will come back. There will continue to be trade with the United States, but we will also be less reliant on it and develop new export markets.
I'm happy to hear that, but I think one of my main concerns is that between two parties, we've had 30 years where jobs have exited this country, and we have worse outcomes for a lot of communities. The NDP has, for 30 years, said that we need fair trade, not free trade. We recognize, of course, that Canada is a trading nation. It's what we rely on. 70% of Canadian GDP equivalent is in import and export. For the U.S., it's only 25% by comparison. But 30 years ago, when China was entering the WTO, and we said that we need to be cautious about what we're doing because we need protections for workers and the environment, the Liberals were the ones pushing that legislation and helping get China in. And actually, Pierre Poilievre's wing of the Conservative Party stood up in Parliament and said that we were just a bunch of socialists who were trying to erect trade barriers. So I think part of the reason as a trade lawyer that I'm part of the NDP is that at this point I'm starting to feel like the other parties have lost their credibility on this issue. And, at the same time, there's a reason that Donald Trump unfortunately won in the U.S., and it's because we've forgotten a lot about these communities, especially communities like those here in southwestern Ontario.
It looks like we will be continuing on from that topic. Well done. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. Joining us now from CBC Hamilton, Eva Salinas. Eva, your question, please, and let us know who you're directing it to.
Thank you. This question is for the Liberal candidate. We know that there has been more support for the Conservatives in predominantly rural ridings such as this one. Why have the Liberals struggled with the rural and farmers' vote, and why should they trust the party to have their interests in mind?
Well, I think the Liberal Party has a very strong platform as it relates to our rural constituents. But I think that in the past, some of the other issues, social issues, have been more of a determinant of how people vote in that part of the constituency. But we really are focused on trying to support farmers to begin trading east and west, giving them the wherewithal from a marketing perspective and rebuilding processing facilities that were lost. We also have sustainable farming practices, and I personally, if I'm elected, will make sure that we continue to preserve the farm land, even with all the growth that we're seeing.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for that. We will be continuing it on now. Joining us tonight, we have a special guest from the media. Joining us from Flamborough today, it's Kara Nickerson. Kara, your question, please, and please let us know who you'll be directing it to.
Hello. I'm directing this to the Liberal candidate. In a campaign where many Conservative candidates did not turn out to debates, what part of the conversation are we missing tonight without incumbent Dan Muse?
Well, if Dan Muse was here, I'd love to be able to ask him a question about the recently released Liberal platform. Quite frankly, I find the platform to be mostly a fantasy as opposed to a reality. The assumptions that were made are very different from the assumptions that were made in the platforms of the NDP and the Liberals. But I also found it very, very interesting that the tax cut that they've been talking about since the start of the election has now been walked back, and it's being spread over a four-year period. However, their plans to balance the budget really don't hold water because of the very rosy assumptions that they've made around how they get to balance.
Thank you for that response. And my apologies to the candidates and the viewers at home. The last question I did not let our NDP candidate respond to. So to our NDP candidate, we'll give you an opportunity if you like now or later for that last question, or you can go into this one now, whatever you prefer, sir.
Well, I can do both now.
You know what?
I think they're actually pretty tied together.
There we go. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I think part of the reason why the Liberal Party has lost trust among rural communities and farmers has to do with income splitting. I know that was a big measure and that brought in some revenue, but at the same time, when you do something like that and you're hitting the middle class, and you aren't going after, the people who are profiting the most in this economy, people will feel jilted, and they will feel like you don't have their back. That's why I'm proud that the NDP platform does include a wealth tax. I know that's something that's different from the other two party platforms. And it's a wealth tax that only starts applying once you have $10 million in assets. So it is fair and it's reasonable, especially in these circumstances, to start asking people who are the most privileged in our society to start helping out and making sure that we're a successful country. Now, on the second question, I don't want to pick up on Chuck's slip up because I know that he said that he thought the Liberal Party was a fantasy. But, parts of the Liberal and Conservative Party platforms are eerily similar, and I don't know who's taking from whom on that. I read that in the Globe actually earlier this week. But one of the biggest things that stands out to me is on housing, where there is an obsession with the GST tax credit. I should remind voters at home that we actually had a GST HST tax credit, and it's active on purchases up to $450,000. If a tax credit was going to solve this housing problem, then it would have done so already. I'm actually proud that the NDP platform on the issue of actually building housing has 5 out of 5 rating from the Canadian Home Builders Association. That's higher than anyone else. And that's because our plan actually sets forth what we need to actually start building housing. Development charges are something that the Conservatives like to talk about and how they eat up a lot of revenue. But unless there's a plan for someone to actually pay for sewers and for streets and for lights, like the NDP has, then we're just passing the buck on who has to pay.
Thank you very much for that response, Mr. Werhunt. And we're now open for debate regarding that last particular question from our Flamborough media representative. Follow-up discussion amongst the two of you regarding this?
Well, I appreciate you correcting my flub. It was really sort of the assumptions that went into the platform for the Conservatives, which are quite different from the more conservative assumptions that were used in both the NDP and Liberal platforms. So it's, I think if I were Dan, I thought I probably wouldn't want to be here as well, just because it'd be a tough one for him to come answer. And like I said, this whole issue of a complete change in the policy with respect to a tax cut is definitely something that would be very difficult for them to defend.
Yeah. And to make sure we even out time, I will give final word to you before we move on.
Yeah, and we do have different tax policies in that. I know Chuck's party is proposing a 1% decrease in the lowest marginal bracket, but we're proposing increasing the basic amount that you can claim, and that will help everybody, including people who make less than $19,500 a year, because those are the people that are going to need that help the most.
To both of you, thank you very much. Mr. Phillips, you would like to respond to that later. You can do so during the open forum debate. Appreciate that. Hamilton, this concludes our first round of questions from our Hamilton media panel. As mentioned earlier, Cable 14 has been collecting questions from you being sent in on X at Cable14 and, of course, by email to election@Cable14.com. Candidates, let's go to some of our viewer questions right now. This first question comes from Jessica. She asks, how would your party invest in shelters, transitional support programming, sexual assault centers, and other community-based services to help survivors of intimate partner violence? We don't have who this question is directed at, so I'm going to flip the imaginary coin, and we'll be going to the NDP candidate to start this question.
Sure. We actually, as part of our platform, it's not specific to victims of intimate partner violence, but we have a dedicated plan to addressing the people that are most vulnerable and most likely to fall into the situation where they don't have housing available. And we have a dedicated fund, I believe, set up just for that purpose.
Thank you for that response. Would you care to rebut?
Yeah, so the Liberal platform also includes a $4 billion commitment, not specifically for the intimate partner violence that's mentioned in the question, but it would certainly encompass that as well. But it is intended to increase long-term care homes and other facilities within the community to be able to deal with this very this very challenging problem.
Thank you very much to both of you. As we continue on now, I'm being told that for all the viewer questions that are coming in, we want to share as many as we can with the time that we have available. So keep sending them in, please, on X at Cable14 or by email at election@Cable14.com, and we'll do our best to get them into this debate. Okay, Hamilton, that wraps up round one of this question and answer period. Again, just being tight on time here. Before we continue with the second round of media questions, any candidate who was not invited to participate in our debate tonight, they were given the opportunity to record a statement. We'll now be hearing from the People's Party candidate, Nikita Mahood.
Hello, I'm Nikita Mahood, your People's Party of Canada candidate for Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North. I'm a mother, farmer, and small business owner. I'm running for the People's Party of Canada because this party has stood up for mine and my family's rights and freedoms, while other parties remain silent during government overreach. The platform is clear, consistent, and represents my values of freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect. Our leader, Max Bernier, has been a consistent and vocal defender of integrity and sovereignty and does not pander to special interest or focus groups. I have had the pleasure of meeting many of you at your door and have heard your concerns about how current politicians are not representing your views. Most residents I speak to believe in our platform, but I will discuss only a few points with the time I have today. The top issue I am hearing from residents is that life in Canada is unaffordable. People are upset that our government is prioritizing global interests while Canadians are struggling. The People's Party would address the needs of Canadians over funding foreign initiatives, such as the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and dumping billions of dollars into the Russian-Ukrainian war. Residents agree that a trade war with the U.S. has been costly and avoidable. We would work with the U.S. until we have come up with a fair trade agreement that works for both countries. We would not feed a trade war that Canada cannot win. Many of you are concerned about the effects of woke ideologies on your families and children. The idea that children may need to alter their bodies or share restrooms with people of the opposite biological gender has been framed as necessary to respect everyone's rights. The truth is that children need to be allowed to grow and learn without undue influence from special interest groups and are not able to consent to puberty blockers and hormone replacement therapies, and frequently regret these permanent body alterations later in life. Women need protected spaces and should not be forced to share sports, restrooms, or jails with biological men. It is not homophobic to feel this way, and I will gladly stand up for Canadians who wish to express their beliefs without being silenced. I am also hearing concerns about mass immigration from residents. While responsible immigration can be a great benefit to Canada, the magnitude and lowered standards of the current system are becoming a detriment to our economy and our culture. There is a housing shortage and an increasing shortage of entry-level jobs. I have been informed from first-hand sources that employers are sometimes paid thousands in grants from the government for diversity hires, while our young Canadian workers cannot find employment. The People's Party would put a moratorium on immigration and reform the system to accept less immigrants and prioritize the right skills and bring back face-to-face interviews to assess alignment with Canadian values. This election, remember to stay true to your values. No one owns your vote but you. If you want to see change, then vote for it. Vote for the People's Party of Canada and me, Nikita Mahood.
To Nikita Mahood, thank you very much for recording that statement. And for our viewers at home, if you miss any part of this broadcast or would like to see the other Hamilton federal candidate debates right here on Cable 14, you'll be able to find all of those debates on demand at Cable14.com. Free for public viewing and sharing, all courtesy of our good friends at Cogeco and Rogers, starting at 12 a.m. this Saturday, April the 26th. Okay, Hamilton, let's move on now to round two of tonight's media questions. Once again, he's joining us from the Hamilton Spectator. It's Mr. John Wells. Mr. Wells, your question, please, and let us know who you'll be directing it to.
Thanks, Mike. I guess I'll address this one to the NDP candidate, Peter. Maybe a somewhat provocative question, but the Spectator recently did a survey for readers on whether they would travel to the U.S., given the given everything with Trump, and we got some emotional response to that, both people who would and would not. So I thought I would ask the candidates whether you would ever take a vacation or a trip for pleasure to the U.S. in the coming year. I went down a few weeks ago, I have to confess, so I'm not immune to the sort of thing. But I thought I would ask both of you whether you would do that or not, and why.
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's one I find myself asking more and more. It's a scary situation going on south of the border, and we've heard stories about it. People being stopped and asked political questions, even though they're Canadians in there legally in the country, and being targeted and persecuted for it. It's you start to hear stories anecdotally, and they start adding up. Customs officials at the border asking Canadians if they support Trump, and then being barred from the country for 2 years, and then trying to appeal, and then being told, actually, you know what, you thought you would get a different answer from me. Now you're out of the country for 3 years. So it's a dangerous game that we're playing, and that's why dangerous game that Trump is playing, rather, let me say that. And I think that it's going to lead to bad outcomes for the U.S. It's going to lead to bad outcomes for Canadians in the short term. But with the right leadership, it's an opportunity to address some of the biggest issues that we have in our country. And I think that together we can get through it.
Mr. Werhun, thank you very much for that. We'll now move on to Mr. Phillips for your response, sir.
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting aspects of the Canadian response to the challenges to our sovereignty that were presented by the U.S. president were the Buy Canadian drive that is real, and a newfound patriotism, which I think is really, really exciting. I love my country, and I found out that most of the other people in this country similarly feel strongly about the country. And so this year, any vacation time that we spend will be done in Canada. It's a beautiful country, and there's all sorts of incentives like free admission at national parks. And so there's no reason to go to the States. And as you point out, it's becoming far more worrisome given some of the things that are happening that we're reading about at the border.
Yeah, and I would just jump in and say that that's something that you realize about the rule of law, and unfortunately that a lot of businesses as well as individuals are realizing south of the border that you can do a lot if you want to have a business. You can have lots of tax incentives, you can have the right regulatory environment, but fundamentally, if you are in a country that does no longer respect liberty and the rule of law, then that's not conducive to business. And I think Canada will continue to have that strength as we go forward, and that's a decision that each and every one of us is going to have to make.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I would point out, just to sort of on the other side of the equation, is that I think most Canadians understand that this is an initiative of President Trump. And that it is not necessarily supported by the majority of Americans. I think the majority of Americans were appalled by the attacks on Canada, and so I still have really great friends in the U.S. and it's still a great country, but I think for a period of time until things start to settle out a bit, I'd much rather spend my time in Canada.
Yeah, and it's nothing against individual Americans, just to be clear on that. But just as there as here, we're responsible for the leaders that we elect, and they are our representatives, and we need to be the ones to hold them to account. And I'm very happy that's going on in the U.S., and that's something that we need to make sure happens here as we go forward as well.
Thank you both for the responses to those questions put forth by Mr. John Wells of the Hamilton Spectator. Coming up next from CHCH and the current host of Trending Now, Manisa Dhanabala. She is back. Your question, who you're going to be directing it to, please, Manisa.
Thank you. My question is for the Liberal candidate. How do you plan to improve the temporary foreign worker permits to support their rights after a UN report last year detailed how the workers were being abused?
Well, I think the whole topic of immigration is one that needs a serious rethink. I think that, I think this is, this is the advantage that I have being running for the first time and really not having a stake in some of the things that happened with the previous government. But I really think that there were abuses in the temporary foreign worker program that need to be addressed. And there also needs to be a whole lot more thought and planning that goes into our immigration going forward to make sure that it meets our needs and that it doesn't exceed our capacity in terms of housing and social programs.
I will say I do resent that answer a tiny little bit, because we are both running as representatives of our party, and as much as Mark Carney cannot run away from the last 10 years because he is seeking to lead the Liberal government into the next term, I have to be responsible as well for the decisions that my party has made, even though we have a different vision for the future going forward. Specifically with regards to your question, though, I will say that a troubling aspect is that our immigration system is frankly gone from straining under the weight to crumbling under the weight. As of the end of last year, there were over 1 million people waiting for processing of their applications, and refugee claims were taking 3 years in order to clear. That means something has to be done about that, and last I heard, actually, there were cuts coming for immigration review officers, and that's something that's unacceptable.
Response from the Liberal candidate.
Well, I respect your opinion, Peter, on that, but I really do feel that the constituents of this riding are looking for someone that can sort of bring an open mind and be informed by data. And also, not everything that a government does it works. And if it's not working, it needs to be fixed. And that's what people are elected to Parliament to do.
Nope. I don't believe I said anything that disagrees with that statement. I will say, though, that, as much as we have a different leader in the Liberal Party, we are going to have, for better or worse, because I know that there are plenty of NDP supporters as well, and there's plenty of people who don't share this view at the same time, is that we're going to have a lot of the same Liberal faces around the caucus table, and a lot of them did not show the courage that I think we needed in a very dangerous time in November of last year. The NDP gets a lot of flack for what we did and what we didn't do, but I think the Liberal Party also needs to take responsibility for what it was doing with the leadership of this country.
We're good. We're going to continue to move on. Okay, next question will be coming from CBC's very own Eva Salinas.
Thank you. This question's for the NDP candidate. According to polling firm Abacus data, the demographic most likely to say they're going to vote Conservative are men under the age of 30. Why do you think the NDP may not be resonating with that demographic as much as the Conservatives?
Yeah. So I'm now technically a man over the age of 30 as of September of last year. So I guess I can't speak directly for that demographic. But I can tell you that a lot of the people that I talk to on the doorstep, they are red or orange split voters. They're people who see that the issues that are going around them are unsustainable. And they don't necessarily know how to fix it, but they want someone in order to be able to articulate their need for change. So you actually see an interesting demographic split, not just in Canada, but across the world, where men are, especially younger men, are tilting more towards Conservative parties, and women are doing the opposite. Actually, women under 30 are tilting more towards leftist parties and center-left parties like the NDP. So I don't think it's set in stone. We have an election every 4 years, and we've had dramatic swings in government over the past 20 years. And it's something that I'm going to go out and keep talking about even after this election.
Thank you for that response. We'll now move on to the Liberal candidate for his response.
Yeah, well, I think there has been a leadership message that's been coming out, which seems to resonate with young men about Canada being broken. And it's something that I just think is fundamentally irresponsible. The fact is that there are always things that can be fixed, but the country obviously is doing well. It is obviously, people feel very strongly patriotic about our country. And therefore, I agree with you that there are things that we have to do to be able to deal with the issues that young men are frustrated about, like the affordability of housing, as well as the cost of living issues. But if we deal with those in an open and honest way, I think that we can maybe address this when some of the rhetoric dies down.
Well, I'll say, just as a representative of people of a certain generation, I know we are a little bit separated in terms of the generations, but when people say that Canada is broken, and young people say that, it's not out of a disrespect or lack of love for our country. It's out of a place of disappointment that, I'm a lawyer, and I don't know when I'll be able to afford a house, let alone Toronto, definitely never. And Hamilton, Flamborough, that's out of reach for a lot of young people. So I don't want to say that our country is broken, but I also think that a lot of the anger is coming from a certain generation that feels like people who have been in power for the last 20 years, and the same thing in the United States, are taking a lot of their concerns that they're trying to voice in a reasonable and responsible way for granted, and they're gravitating toward extremes.
Thank you for that response. Would you like to follow up with that at all, sir?
Well, I would say, that you have to have a hard look at the Liberal and Mark Carney's policy around housing, because I think, there is hope. If you double the capacity of new homes constructed every year, and you build and you focus on affordable and deeply affordable homes, there will be a possibility for people to realize their dream and be able to buy a home. And so I'm much more optimistic about that than you are.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on that.
Thank you very much to our candidates for that open discussion. Coming back now from the Flamborough Today to ask a question to our candidates, it's Kara Nickerson. Kara, your question, please, and who you'll be directing it to.
My question is directed to the NDP candidate. Paris and Waterdown in the new Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North Riding are two small towns that are facing expansion and intensification, which locals often push back against. With the NDP planning to build 3 million homes over the next 5 years, how will you meet those targets in the new riding while listening to concerns of constituents?
Yeah, I think those are certainly perfectly valid concerns. I think towns like Paris, which I've gotten to know very well over the past couple of weeks, they have a unique character, and there's a lot of concern about changes to that character. I don't want to dismiss anyone's concerns about their changing communities, but ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to deal with where we are right now. Our housing plan is focused on densification and non-market housing playing an important role. And it's important that we respect the environment, especially our prime agricultural land in areas like Paris and Waterdown. Waterdown has the protections of the green belt that help shape the way development works in that area. Paris does not, unfortunately. So we're going to need combined work from both the federal and provincial and municipal governments in order to be able to do this. And that's why the money that comes from the NDP plan is actually going to provinces and municipalities.
Thank you for that response. Mr. Phillips, your response, please.
Yeah, I think we both agree that some of the urban areas in this riding are growing at an incredible rate. In fact, I understand that Brant County is the fastest growing community in the country. And so that would include Paris, but Waterdown is slated to grow at 50%. And so the solution to that is making sure that there's proper infrastructure. And so I agree with you that the only way that this happens, is with federal participation, but also a lot of cooperation with provincial and municipal officials to both ensure that the housing starts are happening quicker and that there's fewer constraints on housing starts, but that residents' concerns around having appropriate infrastructure to accommodate the new entrants is part of the package.
To each of you, thank you for your responses. We do have to move on because of time, because guess what? We have some more viewer questions. So that's going to be coming up. But first off, thanks again to John Wells from the Hamilton Spectator, Manisa Danabalan from CHCH, Eva Salinas from CBC, and Karen Nickerson from Flamborough Today for joining us here tonight. We do appreciate your valuable input. We've had more questions coming in by email, as mentioned, election@cable14.com, and at Cable14 on X. Diana and Bob in Waterdown say it was revealed on CBC tonight that Conservative candidates were told not to attend debates and not to answer reporter questions from today until the election. Why should this controlling of the message be a concern to Canadians? Is this something we would need to worry about from the Liberal Party too? So with the way that question is asked, I will be throwing this over to the Liberal candidate to start with.
Thanks, Mike. Well, you know, this disdain for the media, this disdain for, you know, being open and transparent, sure has echoes from the administration in the U.S. I know that the leader of the Conservative Party has restricted the access to media on his campaign plane, and I think that that it really is an insult to the voters. Voters are very diligent about getting to know everything they can about candidates, and so the best way to do so is for them to participate in debates like this and to make themselves available to media.
Appreciate that response. We will give an opportunity for the NDP candidate to respond if he wishes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. You know, I know that question was directed at what we can expect from the Liberal Party. I think that between SNC-Lavalin and a trail of cabinet ministers, I am hopeful that they'll be turning over a new leaf, but you know, hope springs eternal. When it comes to the Conservatives specifically, I will just say that it's not at all surprising when you have a campaign slogan that is just the Canadian version of America First. I think we all knew where that was going.
Thank you to both of you. We appreciate that. And of course, we appreciate the question coming in from Waterdown. We will now be moving on to our open forum. Hamilton, each candidate will have a minute to raise a topic for debate, or they can ask a direct question. The other candidate will have 1 minute to respond without interruption. After that, you're welcome to go back and forth on a particular topic. We'll be keeping a close eye on the time to ensure that each candidate will have an equal opportunity to ask and answer questions. Please remember, of course, we are holding you to 1 minute for both asking and answering. Just before tonight's broadcast, Cable 14, we randomly drew numbers in front of the candidates to determine the order they are asking questions. And I do believe, Mr. Peter Werhun, you picked number one?
I picked you.
You were, see, I wasn't here for that part, folks. To our Liberal candidate, you get the first question to ask before we get into an open forum. Please, the question to your NDP candidate.
Okay, thank you. So my question is, comes back to the whole issue of the trade war and at my initial thesis that leadership matters. And so my question to you is, can you tell me why you feel you and your leader are qualified to be able to respond to this?
Yeah, well, I think Jagmeet Singh has had a proven record. He's served in government from the provincial level to the federal level. He is a great grasp on the issues. He has an incredible personal story that means that he will never forget about the people that need help the most. You know, I wouldn't be running for the NDP if I did not think that we would be fighting for an NDP prime minister. I will say, though, that given the way that the polls are going, you know, if it does end up being Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre as prime minister, you know, everybody knows our position on Pierre Poilievre. I believe our leader has made that clear. But when it comes to Mark Carney, I do have my own concerns as well. Reading about some of his management styles, I am worried about you know, I'm very happy with, you know, the messaging that's coming out of the Liberal campaign right now. But at the same time, there is that tinge of arrogance that only I can fix the problem that we see in Donald Trump as well. So I want a leader that's going to build a movement of all of us working together, not someone who has to think that they're the only ones that can come in and fix all our problems.
We're now into the open forum portion. Mr. Phillips, please respond and discuss amongst yourselves.
Yeah, so obviously I think Mark Carney is the most qualified person to be able to manage this crisis. I think that he has already formed a relationship with the president. He has not tried to provoke the president, but to operate within what is in the best interest of this country. So I think his background in terms of managing through the financial crisis of 2009, which could have led to a depression, represents an example of his great crisis management skills, as was the work that he did in the UK during Brexit, which obviously he wasn't in favor of, but once it happened, he had to make sure that the UK economy was able to make their way through it. So that crisis management capability is exactly what this country needs at this moment of crisis.
Very quick response.
Yeah, I will just say that we elect leaders they have a majority for a clear 4 years, and we are in a crisis right now, but what's the plan for after the crisis? And we're going to need leadership. Mark Carney himself has said that he's a wartime leader, not a peacetime leader. When peace comes, I think we need to be ready to move forward.
Thank you very much for that response and that discussion around that particular question posed by Mr. Phillips. We'll now continue on to Mr. Peter Werhan. Your question to the candidate next to me.
Yeah, so Chuck, it's been very nice to get to know you this past couple of weeks. My question for you is, why do you specifically want to become a member of Parliament? I know we talk a lot about the leaders and the visions that they have for the country, but I'm interested in what's pulling you towards serving in the House of Commons as a candidate.
Yeah, I've always tried to, make sure that I'm informed about what's happening in the world. I've been fascinated with the ups and downs of politics in this country, and I've always been very close to it because my wife's family have been very active in public service, specifically in leadership positions in the Liberal Party. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it both gave me an opportunity to continue my public service, and I've done some public service work prior to that. But it also allowed me to do something about something that I found unbelievably frustrating. And I find this unprovoked attack and this betrayal by the U.S. is something that I find incredibly frustrating. And I think that I can do something about it, both in terms of supporting Mark Carney, but also as an MP, making sure that the views of the people of our riding are heard in the halls of power in Ottawa.
Response?
Yeah, so that is great to hear from you. I know that a lot of times in Canada, we tend to vote based on party, not based on candidate. Up until tonight, I would have said that we are blessed here in Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North to have 3 people who are running for office and who seem to have, the community's interests at heart. It's good to hear from Chuck that he is coming at this from a place of service. But at the same time, we're also going to need leadership, not just from the top, but from an individual level. So I would be interested to hear kind of what your positions are going to be if you come into a situation where, say, you are at odds with what Mark Carney is doing, especially, for instance, with tax cuts or with other service cuts.
Mr. Phillips, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, I have never experienced Mark Carney as someone who isn't willing to listen to different points of view. And I personally, having been in business leadership positions throughout my career, am not at all shy about sharing an opinion that might be at odds with the leader. And so Mark Carney, at the end of the day, is a consensus builder, and I think that he would listen carefully to any views that are brought, especially if they come from our constituents.
To both of our candidates, thank you very much. It's now time to move on to the closing statement portion of our show. We will now be going in opposite order from how we opened tonight's debate. 1 minute per candidate. Of course, we'll be starting with the New Democrat Party, Mr. Peter Werhan. You have 1 minute, sir.
So thank you again to Cable 14 and to all of our local news organizations that came out today to ask us some tough questions. I've had plenty of time to debate Chuck, so I wanted to say one last thing about the blue side. Our Conservative candidate, a sitting MP, recorded a holiday greeting on Cable 14 just a few months ago, but when it comes to the debate, he's nowhere to be found. I had some questions, as did Chuck, and I'm sure you did at home too, about the Conservative plan for our country. But based on the platform that they put out last week, it's just as well that we have an empty podium for an empty party. Now, I believe it's time to stop running for office and start running for a reason. And I don't think that Canadians really know anymore who they're supposed to vote for among one party or another, except fear or anger. New Democrats don't believe in that, and I don't believe in that. Any of us can step forward and be the change we need, but it starts with each and every one of us. That belief is the reason why I ended up in the NDP, and I hope that you'll join me in our home together.
To our NDP candidate, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. And now to our Liberal Party candidate, Mr. Chuck Phillips, please.
Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this debate. Thank you to the media for asking very thoughtful questions. I thought it was a great debate, and I have, in fact, enjoyed debating you for the last couple of weeks. And I also want to say how much I appreciate the fact that you showed up. I think that showing up is really an important part of our democracy and being able to exchange views. I believe, however, that my goal as MP in this riding is to be the best constituency politician the riding has ever experienced. I know that there's been some concerns in the past about that. And so I want to make sure that as a new politician that I bring those concerns to Ottawa, especially if I'm a member of the government party.
And just like that, Hamilton, there you have your candidates for Glanbrook-Flamborough-Brant North. Thanks to both of you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate you making the time and the effort to be here. Once again, your residents for Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North, we appreciate it. And of course, being here at Cable 14 to debate. To finish off, a reminder, the full list of candidates you'll see on your ballot in the Flamborough-Glanbrook-Brant North riding. From the People's Party candidate, Nikita Mahood, Conservative Party candidate, Mr. Dan Muse, Green Party candidate, Anita Payne, Liberal candidate, who you just heard from, Mr. Chuck Phillips, and also who you just heard from, the New Democratic Party candidate, Mr. Peter Werhun. Remember, Hamilton, if you miss any part of Cable 14's federal riding debates, it's okay. You'll be able to find them on demand at Cable14.com. All free for public viewing and sharing courtesy of Kojiko and Rogers as of 12 a.m. on Saturday, April 26. All the information you need for voting is also available online at elections.ca. Hamilton, please do your part. Get out, get educated, and get out and vote in the upcoming federal election on April the 28th. Thank you, Hamilton, and good night. Closed captioning for this Hamilton federal candidates debate has been sponsored by the Cornerstone Association of Realtors. Homes, not hurdles. Local realtors advocating for attainable homes for everyone.